Hi friends, welcome back. It's Sandy McIver here, and welcome to another edition of Card Making Made Easy. Today we are playing with Butterfly Bliss die, and this is a new release from Syberia Designs. Isn't it beautiful? As you can see from the artwork, like a half or a whole butterfly. There's also two dies to add some embellishments around your card. I'm going to be playing with some basil cardstock today, and I list those colors over on my blog. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and I have pre-cut everything. And what I did was I kept the top wing, the upper wing, in one tray and the bottom wing in another, and then that way all the pieces are there depending on which one I'm working on inlaying. To start the inlay, I like to put some Scotch tape on the back side of the die cuts, so the base part. Okay, so for the one that we're showing today, it's teal at the top and it's orange at the bottom, and basically I'm just covering the back with the Scotch tape. Sorry, I got right out of the picture here. Hopefully I realize this shortly. Anyway, there we go. I'm adding a whole bunch to the back, and I'm not worrying about any overhang until the end. And then I'm going to take my Spellbinders scissors because they are anti-stick, and I'm just going to trim any of the overhang off. And then that way I have a sticky surface, and it's really easy for me to do my inlays. You can use the packaging for a color guide, or you can make up your own. I kind of went with a little bit of both, and I've got it there just kind of to give me an idea. And so with these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors, and I'm pointing to my embellishment wand. The wax tip is really good for picking up little tiny pieces of paper. So some of these little die cuts are very detailed and very tiny, and so one of these works wonders. And what I like to do is work on one panel at a time. So as you can see, I'm starting with the light blue, and I'm looking for the 3 pieces at the sort of main part of the wing, making sure that I have all 6 pieces and that they're all facing the right way, and then that way it's really easy for me just to pick them up and inlay them and press them down, and then they stick to that Scotch tape on the back side. And I like to do 2 at once. Okay, and then you just got to make sure that they're right side up. You see me, I'm flipping some of them over. Okay, so now we got to decide on the flowers for the very tip of this top wing. And I've decided, I think, to use the orange. Maybe I'm going to flip over, and the 5-petal one's going to be the orange because it's in the middle, and then I can do the pink at the top and the bottom. So the first little roadblock I ran into is the 5 petals are not even, so you kind of have to twist them around until you figure out which one fits. And sometimes it fits on the other wing and not this one. So that took a little bit of fussing, as you can tell. Then I tried this one, and look at that, it fit right away. So then I have to go back to this one, and got it. Okay, and there's a little bit of tape that's showing there. I'm just trying to snip that off. It keeps folding back on me. Then I'm going to stick that large pink flower into the very, very point and do that on both of the wings. Another piece of tape. Okay, now I need to dig out the smaller of the flowers. So I need 2 of those out of my dark pink tray. With cutting one of these 5 times, you basically can make 5 butterflies. You might not like all the colors, but you know, you can interchange all of them. There's lots of room to play and get creative with this and change your colors up and decide what you want to do. And right now I'm deciding that maybe I want some of the light blue, smaller leaves, and those are going to go around the pink flowers that are up on the very tip of each one of these wings. And you got to keep in mind that you also have a whole bunch of little outside edge pieces that you're going to be adding in too. And you want to keep this uniform. So the same on both sides. Makes it look a lot nicer because butterflies are made that way. Okay, so right now I'm roaring around trying to straighten all these out and getting them right side up. And then I'm trying to bunch them together to make sure that I've got the 3 for the left side and the 3 for the right side. Some of them are just a tiny little bit of a different shape. They've got a little bit of a wow on the end. And so you've got to watch for that. They're not exactly the same. And so after you put one together, it gets really super easy. I'm looking for one leaf that I'm missing. There we go. So I'm going to start with the 3 kind of larger ones in the top closest to the large pink flower. And I've got them all laid out, so they should just pop in there nice and easy. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat today. Okay, and you just want to push those down, and using the tip on the other end of the embellishment wand does work well for this. It's got a rounded tip on it, so it won't dent your paper. And just to help push those little pieces down in there. Okay, and so then we're going to take these 2 little guys and we're going to put those down underneath the small pink flower. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And I got one in here that I don't, oh, there was an extra, one of the holes was not unplugged yet. So I needed that little teal piece to go into my teal bin. Okay, so we're going to repeat with the other one. Popping these little guys in, pressing them down so they stay. This is a little time consuming, but I found it really enjoyable and very relaxing. It was really creative to be able to pick out the different colors that I wanted and trying to decide to evenly disperse the colors, which of the little pieces I was going to use and where I was going to put them. Now I'm moving on to these little half ovals at the bottom, and I've decided to do those in orange. I'm kind of going to highlight most of the outside edge of this in the orange because right now I only have one orange on there, and it's that large flower. And I want to pull the cohesiveness together with the bottom wings, and so that's why I decided to incorporate more of the orange. Okay, so right now I'm digging out. I need 3 sizes of these little half ovals for each side. So sort those so that you make sure that you have everything that you need. And then, of course, make sure they're right side up. And that gets even more difficult as the pieces get smaller. Using your fingernail and the tip of that wax on the embellishment wand helps a lot. Okay, so I'm sticking that big one in there. And then the ones on either side are the same size. So either one fits in the hole. Okay, so now we're getting down to just all the tiny, tiny little dots, and we have to decide which color we're going to make those. So again, I'm digging around in my tray, and there's 3 sizes that I need for this section. I sorted them so that I've got all of them out and ready to go. The worst part is trying to turn these little guys right side up. It was difficult. But anyway, I have one done. I did that off camera, and I'm just finishing up the second one. I figured you didn't need to see me do both of these because, hey, it's slow going. Good time for an audiobook. Okay, and then I've got the last 3 just underneath this pink flower or right beside the orange one. And there are, again, 3 sizes, a small, medium, and a large. And we're just going to pop those in, and then the top wings are done, which is cool. Isn't it pretty? I'm kind of happy with this color selection. I did this colors, I was working on a different project for Spellbinders, and I had these colors out, and I thought, might make a pretty butterfly. So I had a couple of extra circles out on the table, and I put those back because now I'm going to the pink ones, and there are 2 little pink guys in between the blue and the orange flowers, so I just did those in pink. So there we are. Those are finished. Now we're going to move on to the bottom ones. Okay, so I've already added my Scotch tape to the back, and I have sorted some of the pieces. I am going to duplicate the large light blue pieces the same as the top, and popping those in. Then I've got a pink kind of upside down heart, and then a light pink flower going down into the bottom corner there. Okay, and then I'm going back and I'm kind of looking, what am I going to do? All right, I've got light blue leaves. I decide to stick those down with the light pink down in that bottom corner, and then using the tip to kind of push them down a little bit, get them in there. I'm kind of deciding on, I can't decide on colors, so I decided to go and get this far on the other side. So popping everything in, pushing it down, making sure it's in there nice and straight. If you do happen to get one crooked, just take the end of your little tweezers and hit the edge, bend it back a little bit, and just get underneath of it, and it will pop up, and then you can put it back in straight. Very, very easy to do. Okay, now I'm grabbing those little leaves that are going to go in the bottom underneath that light pink flower. Now it's decision time. I have to decide which colors. I decided on teal for all my little bits because I needed to put some teal in so that went with the top wing. So I also decided on a teal body, and you'll see that there's two heads that you can get. You can get this little guy if you want to do just half of a butterfly, and that's how you put him together. Okay. Or in the case of what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the full-on little dude, and we're going to do a whole butterfly. So just adding a little bit of liquid glue to the top of the antennae, adding the body over top of that, and then the top wing, adding a little bit of glue on the edge, and popping that underneath the body. Same with the bottom one. I found it easier to work one side at a time, and then it gave you a little bit more to hold on to when you went to do the other side. Okay, and just tucking that in there. There are some little dotted indents in the actual die, so it's really easy to kind of follow that to line up the wings from the top and the bottom. They're very, very tiny, so I didn't even try to show them to you. It wouldn't show up on the camera. Okay, getting glue on all of my fingers and needing to hold them in place for a few seconds until they set, and popping that last base wing in. So once you get the center of all of those done, okay, I'm trying to show you where that little line is. Take my word for it. Okay, it's pretty good, but I decide I'm going to put a tiny little bit of glue under each one of these wings just to further support it a little bit. And there we go. Our first butterfly is done. Now we get to put the card together. Well, I think he turned out pretty cool. Next up, there is a new set of essential sentiments, and I'm going to BetterPress them. There's also some new BetterPress inks from Spellbinders, and I'm using one called Malachite. I think that's how it's pronounced. As you may or may not know, you can also foil with your BetterPress plates, so I have some gold ones done in black. That was for a different project. So for this one, I've got all of my dies laid out, or my plates laid out, and I'm inking them up. And then I have already got my piece of white cardstock, and it is already attached to the platinum. That's the clear sheet or piece that goes over top of this before you put it through your machine. Okay, so get everything nice and inky. And I'm also going to show you, don't use goof off on your platen. It makes everything go hazy. I learned that the hard way last week. I have a new one on order. Okay, so popping it through my Platinum 6 and just going to flip that up, and there we go. I can use the coordinating dies and cut these all out. I just wanted to show you that Spellbinders came out with a new handle for their Platinum 6, and it's got a hinge in it, but you have to pull it over to the edge of the table because it goes down below the table. That's why I was using it over on the edge. But with the longer handle, you don't have to torque on it at all. It's really easy to do any die cutting. And speaking of die cutting, I have all of the dies glued down, running it through my machine, and then just bringing it back the other way. And boom, just like that. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sets of sentiments. And I like to do this. I always do all of my sentiments the first time around. That way I've got a whole bunch of spares for future projects. So just going to get the rest of the pieces I need for my card. I have used the abstract floral background and I embossed it. If you, there's this one here, this is what I used, and it is a BetterPress plate, but you can also emboss with it. So what you do is you place your spritz paper on top of the plate, and then you use this a D, which is a soft, I don't know how you would describe it. It's kind of soft foamy rubber, and you put it on top, run it through, and it impresses everything for you. It's awesome. Then I use the stitched rectangle wafer dies, and I cut out 3 of the frames, and what we're going to do is glue them together. You want to use the liquid glue to do this because it gives you a couple of seconds to straighten everything out and get it layered nicely. Simon Says Stamps just came out with a new one this week, and I have been using it, and I quite like it. And they have big bottles and little bottles, which are awesome. So I just ordered a whole pile of both. I order all my glue in the summertime because a lot of times you can't get the glue in the wintertime because it doesn't work well if it freezes. And we know it freezes up here. Okay, so here's my third one. I'm just got one that was just kind of out of whack there a little bit. Placing that third one on, and then once we get them all lined up, we're going to give them a good little scrunch. I think that's good. I have my embossed piece already attached to a top folding A2 size card, so 4 1/4 by 11. You're going to score and fold that at 5 1/2, and then our frame is going to go right over top of that. Okay, line up those corners nice. Give everything a bit of a press. I like to turn these upside down and hold them for a few secs because it's embossing that we are gluing to, and of course you know the glue's not going to be completely solid, only on the high spots, so it's nice to give it a little bit of attention. Next, I've added some foam squares to the back, and I am going to attach my pretty butterfly to my card a little bit on an angle, just kind of checking a few things out here. I think I've got something hanging out that I don't like. There is a piece of tape. And I'm also going to add a little bit of glue to the tips of all 4 of the corners so that it stays nice and secure on my card. Okay, and again, you might want to hold on to that for a couple of secs, just until the glue sets a little bit. So now I have pre-cut a whole bunch of those leaves and flowers that we talked about way back in the beginning, and I'm going to use those to add a little bit of embellishment around this card and just fill in a little bit of the color. So I've taken, I think there's 5 pieces in the leaves. So I've got all of those, and then I have a selection of orange, light and dark pink flowers, and to add the turquoise in, I did a turquoise center for the 5-petal flower. So I'm just gluing those on, and then we will be ready to put these all together. So I'm going to use the white glue because I'm going to be playing on the frame. I'm just showing you the flower dies where the center is, and then here are the leaf dies. So yeah, there's 5. Okay, so back to the leaves. We are going to use a selection from each one. And apparently I'm looking for a few more leaves. There we go. And flowers. So I put 4 flowers on each side, and then 5 leaves. And I'm going to attach the 2 little tiny flowers to this stem that has the little round things on the end. I'm assuming that's where they go. Doing the same thing for the other side. Okay, and I've got an orange and a yellow on one, or orange and light pink, and then orange and dark pink on the bottom one. Okay, so we're going to start with that one, and then I'm dry laying these just to make sure that I have enough and I'm going to be happy with it before I start gluing them down. I call this auditioning, making sure everything's where I'm going to want it to be. There we go. So, and then we're going to do the same thing at the bottom. And then I'm just going to glue them down. Okay, so I sped this up, but got foam squares on the back of the base flowers. Then I'm adding a little bit of glue to the tip, and I'm just going to start gluing everything down. So I'm going to put all the greenery down on top of this. Okay, and I'm gluing everything to the frame, and that's why I put foam squares underneath the flowers. Okay, so the last two little solid leaves up in the corner there. If you have any overhang, trim it off. And then again, foam squares on the flowers and adding them. And that one little guy there gets an overlay. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other end. And that's it. We are all done with our card. I added the sentiment down in the bottom left or right hand corner, again with a few little foam squares underneath and then glue so that it laid flat. Okay, and I also did another one with some of the leftovers just so you can see what some of the other color combinations could be. I'll use that on another card down the road. So everything I used today is listed underneath the video. There's also a link over to my blog for further details. And if you enjoyed today's video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and sharing it with your friends. Until next time, toodles!